One of the more common things to cut on a Waterjet is dog bone shapes for tensile testing of various materials, be it steel, stainless, can even do it for composite materials. So I wrote a little app in IGEMS. It's a parametric shape that allows you to quickly design a dog bone shape here. It's typically what they look like. And this has boxes for the different dimensions. And so if we want, of course, change any of these, we can just go into here, change a number, click on OK, and then we've got our dog bone shape in IGEMS. So if you're cutting this out of flat plate, at this point it would be pretty straightforward. You'd go pick your material and thickness and nozzle orifice combination and such and program it and cut it. Oftentimes people want to cut this out of a tube, so with either the 3D 3X module or 3D 5X module, if you've got that, depending on your head configuration, you can use that to wrap this around a tube, and then the cutting head will follow the profile of the tube and keep that nozzle close to the tube as you're going around there. So to do that, what we'll do here is we'll click on the in my case 3D 5X module, even though I'm going to be doing this as if this is a basically a 3-axis machine with a fixed cutting head. Just move up and down in Z, no tilting of the cutting head. So in here we've got a tube design module. So if you go over to here, you can click on tube, and then can click on this button here and you can plug in all the different numbers about your tube, length and wall thickness and diameter. So the length of the tube, I'm going to make this a couple inches longer than the actual tube I'll be cutting. This is going to allow me to cut a fixture and have enough room to put the tube into my fixture. So if the tube was going to be 24 inches long, I might tell it that actually it's 26 inches long, and then we'll have enough room to put the tube into the fixture. So click on OK, and then export, and this brings it into here. So right now that's where our 0 point is, and right now the tube is halfway below the table. So typically if we're going to cut this on top of the table, we're going to move this up, and then we're going to move it up a little bit above the surface of the table, so that will allow us to put a fixture under here, and then the tube won't sit directly on the grates of the table, be suspended and supported by our fixture. So I'll go to the CAD tab here, and I can use this Z position button, and I can put the bottom of it at just a little bit off the table. So we'll put the bottom at 16th inch off the table, and that moves everything up. And then with that, I'm going to want to move my 0 point. We'll generally put that at the top of the tube here, so I can go onto my cam tab and click on 0 point, and I'm going to go ahead and pick a quadrant and put that right at the top of the tube there. So next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and design my fixture base plate here. So a couple ways of doing that. On the design tab, I have this option for a box. And basically what we can do is I'm just going to kind of randomly click a point over here. I'm going to drag this over here somewhere. And so that's my XY for my fixture, and then tell it how thick that my fixture material is going to be. So maybe I'm going to cut this out of 1/4 inch aluminum or plywood or something. So that will be my fixture. Right now it doesn't have any sort of slot cut into that, but fortunately on the Tools tab, I've got the section button here, so you can click on this, and then down here at the bottom we can use the point option, and if I just pick a point on the top of the fixture, it'll see where that intersects my tube, and then I've got a rectangle that I'll be able to extrude out into that to create my cutout for the tube to sit in. So to do that, I'm going to move my fixture away from my tube so I can work on that, or I could move the tube away from the fixture, whichever way is easier. So I can go to my CAD tab here, and I go to move, and I can select everything, and then I'm just going to hold down my shift key and I'm going to deselect the tube. And then I'm going to move it, we'll just move it down a couple feet in Y. And so now back onto the design tab, we can use this extrude option here, and then prompts me to select curves. So I'm going to select that and hit enter. And then I'm just going to, since it's 1/4 inch thick, tell it that I want to go 1/4 inch, and arrows showing me that it's going to extrude that down that way, which is good. If I clicked on this little button there, it would go the other direction, which I don't want. And then we want to remove that from the model, so click on remove, and then OK. And now I've got my opening for my tube to sit in. So then what I can do is go back onto the cam tab, and if I click on create part, I can give this a name, base fixture, and click on OK. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into another workspace, and because usually we're going to cut this out of a different thickness or material. And so I'll just click on that, and I'm going to do a Control-C to copy, and then I'm going to go to another workspace. So then we'll do a Control-V, and we'll paste it in here, and then we'd go ahead and pick whatever material and thickness that we want to cut this base fixture out of. Since we told it when we were in the 3D world there, they were doing 1/4 inch. I've got a 1/4 inch aluminum here, it could be plywood, whatever the case may be. You can go ahead and cut that. And then if we go back to the other workspace, so right now you don't see the tube there, but if we double click on this, then it'll bring us back into the 3D world, and then we've got our tube still there. And since we don't really need this fixture anymore, I'm just going to delete that, so we can just concentrate on the tube here. So now we can go ahead and import our dog bone geometry and place it on the tube here. So to do that, on the Tools tab, can click on Import, and then we'll go ahead and select this. And usually I click on Yes to keep original, just in case I need to go back and do anything with it. So now we come in here, there's that. So now I can go onto my CAD tab here, and I can use my Move command, select that, hit Enter, and I'll move this from the right-click midpoint of here to the right-click quadrant of here. So that puts it on the top of the tube. Right now it's flat, but next thing we're going to do is we're going to project this down onto that surface. And then probably also be a good idea to move it a little bit away from the end of the tube, so I can do my Move command again, and I'll just select that and hit Enter. Base point doesn't really matter, I'll click there. So if I want to move it down 1 inch off the end of the tube, I'll just do 1, 0, 0, and my relative box is checked, so it's going to move it 1 inch to the right. So rather than using the project button that we have here on the Tools tab, we'll use this drop curve option, and can click on the curves that we want to project down onto the tube here. And good. And then select surfaces, so I can click on surface of the tube and hit Enter. And then I can do S for straight, and it'll go project it straight down. Use the surface method, so it'll find the different surfaces in that model. So projects it down to the bottom surface of the ID there, as well as the ID at the bottom and down there, which we don't really need. But of course, the important one is the ones at the top here. So now that we've got that, we can go ahead onto our Cam tab, and we can go on to the curves area and pick the curves that we actually want to use to cut. So we can click on Pick Edges and click on one of these edges here, and then I'm just going to press N on my keyboard for next and just follow that around till I get to the end there, and then do the same thing for the bottom curve. So I'll spin this around and pick there, and then follow that around. So now we've got our top and our bottom curves there that we can use. So IGEMS will look at the thickness difference as it goes around here and adjust the speed based on the thickness that it sees that it's actually passing through. So click on Close, and we'll go to Toolpath. So I'm just going to click on this plus button to add my toolpath. Prompts me to select upper curve, which will be this one, and then where I want to pierce, which will be, I'll usually want to start at the midpoint of one of these ends here, and then end point we're just going to hit Enter to go all the way around, and we'll go In this case, we'll go clockwise, and then lower curve will be that there. And then I'll put in my lead in and lead out here. And I've put a 20 thousandths tab on here that you can see the gap in the tool path there, so that the dog bone will stay in the tube, and I can just break it out. And then usually what we'll do is see how it's these red lines here projecting where IGEMS is thinking that should be connecting the top and bottom curves, but since we're just going to be doing this with a fixed 2D head, we're just going to change this cut type rather than being ruled. We're going to change that to fixed, and then down here at the bottom we should see that tilt is 0 degrees, and that means the cutting head will remain vertical throughout the entire cut, but it will follow the curve of the cut of the tube. Okay. So other things that people usually do in this application is they don't care about how smooth the ends are. So usually they want to cut those as fast as possible, and then they'll cut this area in here nice and slow so it's nice and smooth. So to change those qualities, we've got the quality area here. If you click on this little button here, then you can apply different qualities on the part. So I'll click on extra fine, and we're going to apply that between here, and then I left click to lock that in, and then I left click here, and then left click to lock it in. Hit enter, and then I'm going to do extra rough for the rest of it. And we're left click here, and left click there, and lock that in, and left click, and done. Close. So we got that, and then the only other thing you might want to do is adjust your rapid height, or you might want to have it where at the end of the cut, the cutting head rises up a bit and then maybe moves back, so it moves out of the way, and then you can easily get that specimen out of the tube. So for that, we've got the rapids button. So if I click on this, if I just want to keep it simple, click on the distance button, and it'll just raise up a little bit. If I do want to have an additional move away from my cut at the end here, I can use this modify button, and I choose the rapid that I want to modify, which in this case, this one here is the end rapid because that's coming off of the lead out. So I click on that. And so if I just move my cutting head up in the Z-axis a bit, and if I want to move up 1 inch, for example, I type that in, and then if I want to make a horizontal move down here at the bottom, I choose horizontal plane, and if I want to go back whatever distance, I'll say 12 inches, just start typing 12, and then hit enter because I'm done, or I can click down here for done. And so now we see that the rapid move that it'll do at the end there. And we're done with that. And if we want to, we can simulate it again with that new rapid move on there. So if that all looks good, then we can go ahead and click on create part, and we're going to update the part that we had exported before, which is the base plate. Now it'll just be the tube. Curves, yes, okay, so it brings it out here. So here we see the dog bone, we see the blue for that additional rapid at the end. So now we just set our 0 point. So I click on the order 1, 2, 3 button, drag a box around my part here, and always important when you're working with a part that comes out of the 3D3X or 5X module, if you change that 0 point, click on part, and then you should see that this Z corresponds with where you put the Z on the part. If you don't, then your cutting head height will be off by the difference between those two. So if we want to preview that, we can go to Process, and we'll do the 3D preview. So we'll go ahead and start this. Okay, if that all looks good, we can exit out of there, and then we would create our CNC file and be ready for that part of it. And then the only other part left is the fixture. So we'll just close out of here, and then we'll switch to our other workspace that had our fixture plate in here. So the key thing on this is when we go to cut this fixture is we want to set our 0, 0 point for this cutout to be basically correspond with where we've got that 0 point on the tube. So, and generally you're probably not going to need to cut this outside part of it because you can just put up a piece of scrap material that's slightly bigger than this slot that we're cutting out. So generally what you would do is just put your tool path on the inside, and I'll just put one down here. And then go ahead and set your 0 point. And so then we click on this button here to change our 0 point, and I'm going to right click and put it at the middle of this line here. So then when we start this program, we would save that start point, cut out this slot, and then take out the slug, move the cutting head out of the way, put down the tube, raise our Z up, and then disable the Z move, move back to where our save start point was. And then we can jog down slowly in Z to our proper Z height, save that new point as our start point for our tube, and that's so our tube start point is going to correspond with our 0 point for our fixture. So if you have any questions on that, let us know. Thanks.